Hi everyone and welcome to today's video, which is a build video for the Airfix Messerschmitt 109 E-3. Now this is the starter stroke gift set that I purchased last year and did a review video on. And I thought it was probably about time to get round and build it. So here we go. Right, straight off the bat, the instructions do say to build up things like the cockpit and the propeller and nose cone. So I'm going to start with the nose cone, but I'm not going to actually glue them together. What I will say is to be careful with the nose cone, because I managed to break it in trying to file away the sprue gates on this particular piece after I clipped it from the sprue. So I will need to glue that back together at some point. However, having said that, that's not going to be an issue for the first couple of parts. So the first parts are to push the propeller pin through the part of the nose cone plate. I'm not too fussed about this actually working, so I am literally just going to glue the propeller to it. And just try and make sure that that is all as squared up as I can get it. So I'm going to place that face down to try and avoid any bending to the propeller pin. Now the next part is the cockpit. Now I am going to put the pilot in. It is going to be wheels down, but all I've done is just taken the pilot off the sprue and trimmed up his seam lines, and then I've just glued him to a piece of sprue to make it easier to spray and paint. So that was one thing I did. The cockpit itself, you have the pilot seat, which goes into this recess just here. And then something else that you need to be aware of, and that is the pedal assembly. Now the pedal assembly looks like that. It's part A23, and what you need to do is, if you're having the pilot, is you need to trim away the pedals, or else he's not going to fit. His feet won't fit. So we will do that. And then this goes into the cockpit tub, goes on in the hole nearest to the front bulkhead there, and it should only go one way, so that it leans up against the wall of the cockpit. Now, because of the way that this is moulded, you are going to need tweezers, and just make sure that goes in like so. Now this has I don't know if you can see, Don't know if you can see, but it's almost got like a little hook on top of the joystick, and that needs to point towards the front bulkhead in the cockpit. Okay, and that's that. Now, the last thing to go into the cockpit assembly is the instrument panel. And this literally goes into there. Now, it's tight enough fit that it will sit there. Try and get it as much a right angle to the front bulkhead as possible. And then literally I'm just going to drop in some plastic weld so that it runs along the seams, and then that's that. That's your cockpit assembly. Everything's had a spray of green that I want to be green for now, and whilst it may not be the same colour as is 31, so if I can find it again, so the 31 colour is quite a pale green. I have seen some photographs where it's more this colour than the other. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go in and paint some of the interior details. Now, I'm going to be using more colours than the kit provides, so the interior details on the inside are basically black, according to the instructions. Some of the details I am going to go with different colours, and I'll point these out to you. As we do them. One of the other things, the paint, I'm using the paint supplied with the kit, and as you can see it's quite thick, so it's not doing very well. So let's paint the engine. Now the engine is supposed to be black. I may give it just a highlighting overbrush or dry brush with lead belcher from Citadel. I might actually try thinning this with proper enamel, not enamel thinners, acrylic thinners. Let's see how that goes. just looking ahead on the instructions, and one of the things I'm going to do is just glue the wings together. So these actually, once you push them together, stay in place quite well. And all I've done is where I've sprayed, I've just removed a little bit of the paint from the edges to allow them to bond better. So, taking a brush, I'm going to just touch this to the edge, and the glue will run between the seam and allow it to bond. So doing the rear panel there, which is where the main flaps will go. And then I'm going to just allow some glue to run into there. And just push that together. I'll do the same this side. Now the front, I am going to lift it slightly, and that will allow this to run down there a lot easier. Like so. And I'll do the same on this side. And that's the wings glued together. I am going to clip them just so that they are held in place correctly, like this. And that's that. So I'm currently in the process of joining the fuselage halves together, and as per usual, I have made a start and I'm going round and doing the seams individually. Now the good part is that some of the seams I can get to from underneath. So from the back here, I can do the seam just behind the cockpit, and then the seam through the engine block up to the cockpit, I can do from underneath and also there. So these can then just be pinched together. And what I will do is grab some clamps to help these glue. So placing this one on the engine block like so, and then this one just at the wing roots in by the front of the cockpit, and then the last little bit that I need to do is just that part. What I will do is pinch that at the back and then just leave that to set. Okay, so I'm doing this out of sequence, and the reason being is I think that putting this on right before I do some of the other bits and pieces will prevent me from damaging them. So for example, it says to put on the rear tail planes and the rear rudder, and then the rear tail wheel, but I don't really want to do that because I'm going to try and put the tail wheel in last because I don't want to break it off by mistake. So the wing assembly is going to go in here. Now you may notice that I've got these wheels in the up position, and they're not glued in, they're only pressed in. And the reason that they're pressed in is so that I can protect the inside when I spray the underneath, because I'm going to spray two colours onto the plane. On the top I'm going to spray green, and then on the bottom and the sides I'm going to spray white. So what I'll do is I'll spray the white underneath and then spray the sides white, and then once that's dry I'll spray the top green, just basically in a bottom down position like this. I shall just spray the top green, and that just gives me the foundations for when I come to do the painting, because the underneath is like a very pale blue grey or a very pale grey, and then obviously on top we've got the splinter camouflage of the green, and I think it's a mid grey by the look of it. So let's do this. And then on the wing root. So the bottom cowling is going on, but I'm having difficulty with it. So pushing it into place has caused some slight damage to it. So you need to be careful because it's quite... Essentially I've cracked it here and here. So you need to be very careful about how you push that into position. So anyway, there were some paint call outs for this bottom part of the engine cooling air intake. So they go on there. And then, as I say, be very careful about how you push this into fit, because it is quite tight. I'm just taking off a little bit of the paint to ensure good adhesion. Okay, and then make sure you get it around the right way, otherwise it'll look a bit odd. So be gentle with how you push that into position, because as I say, it is easy to break because it is quite a snug fit in there. And then just make sure that you have it flush before you add in the glue. And then the next piece to go on will be the top of the engine cowling, like so. Now I am going to glue this into position. Yeah, I know I'd already painted the engine, but you know, it was just something that I did. So again, just take some paint off from around where you're going to be gluing, so you get the right bond. And then pop on your engine cowling. And glue that in place. Like so. So as you can see, 109 is coming together. The tail planes fit on and they have a support strut, so these will only go on one way. So you've got the small hole on the underside of the tail plane there, and these are actually quite a tight fit. So I'm hoping that once they're pressed into position, they'll be at the right angle. And this side as well. And that'll be another reason why you want to avoid putting a lot of your smaller detail on until a bit later on. Right, now this one on the right, that's better. So making sure, and I'm referring to the box art as well, and they look like they need to be flat and level, so just make sure that you can do that. Now you do have, as I say, these support struts which are there, and these will only go in one way because there's like a teardrop or an oval roundel locating area there on the bottom of the fuselage at the rear, and then obviously the pinhole in the bottom of the rear wingtip. So I haven't glued these wings yet, these tail planes, and there's a reason for that, and that is because I want to get this correctly seated. And so once that is in the right position, I will then glue the wings in the right position. Okay, right. Just for you guys, I am going to turn around and say you need to be really careful with these strut supports on these tail planes, simply because I've managed to break both of them putting them into position, and it wasn't even a lot of pressure that snapped them in half. So yeah, not impressed. But let's pop the rudder on. Which is very simple, just goes into the groove that's there when you join the two halves of the fuselage together, like so. Okay, so when you come to put on the flaps for the main wing section, you have two options. You can have them moulded slightly down, like that, or you can have them in the up position. Now, if you have them down, there are two lugs on the wing which locate into these holes in the main wing, and that puts them at the right angle. However, if you want to have them at a normal angle, then you need to trim those lugs away in order to be able to put the wing into position in the upright section. So like that. Is how it will go. And these need to be in the correct alignment, so there is a small bump on the underside of these flaps, which obviously goes to the bottom of the wing. So as you can see, the small bumps here, and they need to be on the bottom. So putting in these, I don't know if they're air filters, just on the underside of the wing. So you got two. They will only go in one way round, so they're keyed to only go in, and you will need to just push them in firmly. But okay, there you go, that's those bits. Now I'm close approaching pretty much how much I want to take this before I start painting. So I'm probably only going to put in the pitot tubes and the engine exhausts. The pilot I'm going to keep separate, and then the undercarriage I'm keeping separate to be able to glue it together later on and place into the aircraft. And then the cockpit is obviously separate as well. Okay, so apologies for the video ending rather abruptly. The battery died, unfortunately, but I've put on, I don't know if you'll be able to see them, the pitot tube and the other items that go onto the wing. The spinner is made. I just need to glue on the engine air intake or air filter, which just goes on the side. So that goes just in there. So that's in place, and that is as far as I am taking this build, mainly because all the rest of the bits I'm going to be painting individually off the sprue, including the engine exhaust manifold. So that's it, that's how far we're going. What I might do is just quickly spray up what I'm going to paint up. As you can see, I've already masked off the cockpit to allow me to spray, and I'll show you that, and then the next video will be the paint video for this. Alright, so just to show you what I've done, and as I said, I sprayed the underside and the sides white, and then just literally from the directly above I've just sprayed green down, so it's given me a little bit of a colour variation, but I'll be able to use that to the best ability to put the camouflage on and the light coloured underside on the Messerschmitt. I've also sprayed the spinner black as well in preparation. So yeah, there you go, that's as far as I'm going to take the build for now. Okay, see you in the next video where we put the paint on.